Okay, so now we're going to talk about the microscopic structure of bone, and specifically we're going to go into compact bone versus spongy bone. So I'd like to go to a PowerPoint image here, and when we're talking about the compact bone, which we're going to talk about first, we're going to take a chunk right out of here, or I believe it's actually on the other side, so right out of this portion here. And so everything we're going to see on this side of the screen is near the periosteum, and everything we're going to see on this side of the screen is going to be right up next to the medullary cavity. Okay, and so that's what we're seeing here. So if you can visualize it, here on this outside portion would be periosteum, and in fact we can see the periosteum lining this right here. And right over on this end, over here is going to be the medullary cavity, okay? And you can see this lining right here is our endosteum, okay? So there are some different terms that I want to make sure that I show you on this image, okay? So first let's start with what you're familiar with. So this is the lacuna, okay, here's another one, and inside, here's another one. Inside are going to be the osteocytes, that's where they live, and they're going to be doing that bone remodeling where they're tearing up old bone, laying down new bone, okay, or new bone matrix. So another thing that you're going to notice that I believe we talked about before are these tiny little lines that go from one lacuna to another. So again, those are the canaliculi, and they're tiny canals, and an osteocyte will send out parts of its plasma membrane through that canal, touch its neighbors through that hole, and that allows these osteocytes to work as a coordinated unit together. So another thing that we've talked about as well is running right through the center here, and we can see it as well here, this coming up here. These blood vessels are running through this hollow portion, and this is called the central canal. Okay, so let's add a few new things to this. So one is that perpendicular to the central canal are also blood vessels. You've got them here, you've got them here, you've got them here. Okay, and this is called the perforating canal. So central goes up, perforating is perpendicular. Okay. Now you may notice we talked about before in the tissue section that bone looks a bit like tree rings, and it's specifically compact bone that's going to be looking like these tree rings. Okay, and so each individual tree ring that's got a complete set of circles is going to be called an osteon. And then as we look at the individual rings, that is going to be what's called a lamella. Okay, so one individual ring is a lamella. Now if it's part of an osteon, then it's going to be called a concentric lamella. So this is a concentric lamella. Now you may notice, and we'll talk about how they get there later, but there's actually a ring here on the outside closer to the periosteum, and it's not part of this osteon. It looks, and in fact this would actually go around the entire outside edge of the bone in the diaphysis area. And so this is also a lamella, but instead of being a concentric lamella, this is going to be a circumferential lamella because it's on the circumference, the outside edge of the bone. Now what's interesting is as these osteocytes tear up bone, build it back up, okay, here's an osteon. But these osteons are going to kind of move and shift. And so what you have is you have in between the complete circles, you have these other things that look like incomplete lamella, okay, and that's what they are. And these are going to be called interstitial lamella. Okay, so again, concentric, circumferential, and then interstitial lamella. Okay. Now, okay, and I believe that's all the structures there. Now, what you'll notice is out here the bone changes. So this is compact, and then over here is going to be spongy bone. Okay, and you notice each little individual projection. Here's a projection, here's a projection, here's one, here's one. These are called trabeculae, and they essentially make up the web of spongy bone. Okay, and they're going to be the trabecula. They're going to be unique to the spongy bone, but if you get up close to one of these trabeculae, you're going to notice that they do have lamella. They are lined by endosteum, and notice they do have lacuna, and they do have canaliculi going from one osteocyte to another. Okay, so what I would recommend you do now is that you go back to this thing, microscopic structure of bone tissue. Practice in your own words based on just what we just talked about. Practice filling in what you think these are based on what we just talked about. And then I'd go through that and ask yourself which of these structures in that chart are only in compact bone, which are only in spongy, and then which are found in both. Additionally, you'll get some help working through this material. One, a labeling activity, several of them. And then here's a place to sort those structures again, if it's only in compact bone, only in spongy, or in both. Okay. And then here as well are some descriptions to help you recognize it as you're thinking about putting these things into your own